Welcome to the Future Fit Edge podcast, your launchpad into a smart future. In this era of exponential disruption, the choice is crystal clear. Reinvent or be left behind, whether you are at your peak or facing new challenges. I am Cindy Montgenie, your guide, inviting you behind the scenes of strategic reinvention. As a former tech executive turned future of work explorer and reinvention strategist, I have equipped thousands of leaders worldwide to not just navigate ambiguity, but thrive in it. Each power-packed episode decodes the strategies of top executives who are tackling today's toughest challenges to stay future fit and transform their organizations, communities, or industries for a brighter tomorrow. Tune in for stellar insights, practical frameworks, and cutting-edge mindset shifts that will set you apart. The future is unstoppable. Are you ready to be unstoppable too? Hit subscribe and join me on this exciting journey. Welcome to a new episode of the Future Fit Edge podcast. And I'm super excited about the conversation today with our new accomplished guest. She's super young, but she had already an impressive and inspiring track record. Our guest today is Kwamara Thompson. She's a social entrepreneur. She's an angel and seed investor, a philanthropist, a speaker, a consultant. I highly recommend you to read the entire bio in the description of the podcast, because really this is impressive and inspiring. So welcome, Kwamara, and thanks for spending some time with us today. And also, she's a global speaker all over the world. So super happy to have you today with us.
Oh my God, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for asking me, Cindy. I really enjoyed getting to know you. So I'm excited to talk to you and your audience.
Oh, me too. So let's start where everything began with you. Education, your passion for education. At this moment, we're in the midst of changing social dynamics and amazing technological breakthrough. So how do you envision the future of education in this context?
Yeah, I'm probably not the greatest person to ask because I can be really radical in my thought process. But here's kind of what I truly believe. I think hard skills. This is after you've already done your foundational work, and that's, you're 0 to 5, 6 years old. I think some of the hard skills, learning how to read, obviously write, math, and then some of the digital technology, a lot of that can actually be found online. There's lots of programming that's happening out there. There's lots of education technology that is happening out in the world that can be really pretty self-directed for almost any age level, to be quite frank. I think schools need to flip on their head. And what I mean by that is that we need to actually teach much more soft and life skills when it comes to education. So what are the skills that make you a good team player? How are you collaborative? Do you know how to listen? Do you know how to lead? Do you know how to work cooperatively with folks? Do you know how to manage people? Are you empathetic? Are you compassionate, sympathetic? Those are the kinds of things that I think that schools really actually need to be focused a lot more on. When I'm talking to employers now, as you mentioned, I do a lot of consulting, and one of the things that people say is I can generally teach people technical stuff, or they can find out how to do it. What I can't teach people is how to work with others, how to be compassionate human beings, how to communicate with other folks, how to do written and verbal communication in a way that's not off-putting, and how do you have a team that really believes and work for the better good of the company and for the vision of the company, et cetera. And I think that schools need to move more towards some of those soft skills. And then when I say life skills, I mean financial literacy. Yeah. The amount of people that I know who graduated from Ivy League colleges who were I don't know anything about taxes. And then of course the tax code is written in such a way that is very difficult to decipher. But those are life skills that we all need to have. So I think that schools need to move away from some of the basics. I mean, I think it's important to have that foundation, but not everyone needs to know calculus, algebra, et cetera. People who are interested in that can find that on so many different tutorials on YouTube, et cetera. Go to YouTube Academy. But what can't be taught is how to be a good, responsible, empathetic, loving, et cetera, human being. Those skills cannot be taught virtually. You have to have some real interaction with folks. And so if it were up to me, we would totally throw the whole thing upside down and change the design and the structure of the current state of education here in the United States.
And I hope, because I think like this conversation is getting each time more and more relevant. The reason why the podcast is called the Future Fit Edge is because in my work that I do with organization, it's all about being able to stay future fit, future ready in this tech-driven world. And one of those things is those human skills, because at the end, this is what is going to make us different from a computer or AI programming. And the sooner we could harness those skills, is going to be the better. So I love your vision. And the second question is still saying, like, in this futuristic approach, because you are an angel and seed investor. So and you are also involved in the tech ecosystem. What are the emerging technologies do you believe will have the most impact on businesses and leadership in the next decade?
I think responsive technology, right? So really understanding the needs, things that can be quick and fast. I think we've reached the age where, unfortunately, patience is no longer a real virtue. And so technology that can process large pieces of data and then give either results or recommendations that people can act on quickly. I think that those types of technology is going to be the easiest. But I think it's true across the board that technology that makes human beings' lives easier is usually the technology that catches on the quickest, right? So, when we can go all the way back to Henry Ford and the car. We can go back to when dishwashers came out and washer machines. And you think about all these things that are really convenient to us now. Well, the reason they caught on is because they're convenient. They made our lives easier. We didn't have to spend hours and hours and hours of time on one particular task. So I think that the more responsive that technology is to menial things, like things that people really don't want to be bothered with, I think that's the type of technology that's really going to experiencing and wanting. I mean, I don't have my phone on me, but just the advent of the cell phone and the smartphone, right? I mean, when I was a kid, we didn't even have cell phones. I mean, this is a long time ago now. I thought I was doing something when I had my own phone line. And then we had a cordless phone. But then and then I got my first cell phone when I was 17. It was like my mom's cell phone. It was like this big, I don't know if you guys watch Saved by the Bell. It was this big Zach Morris cell phone. And now you've got these small, basically walking computers in your hand. And most people cannot even function without that basic technology right there in their hand. But why? Because ease of use, because everything is right there. So I think that the next thing has got to be the next thing that we're looking for ease of use that makes life even a little bit more easier, a little bit more enjoyable. I know everyone is into AI. That's like the new buzzword. I do caution us about AI. To me, it feels a little bit like it could become like a .com kind of situation. So I just be cautious. There are going to be some companies who are going to be doing some of this really well, and there are going to be some companies who are really just capitalizing on saying that they're using artificial intelligence and aren't necessarily doing it in a way that really is beneficial, or actually that even makes sense for the product that they're putting together. And they just feel like they need to say it or do it or just say, like, here's the thing, so they can get some more money. And I would say that sometimes is a little bit on us as investors, that we can glom on to these words that make other folks feel like, oh, well, I have to have some kind of AI, I have to have some kind of technology to get investing. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. To me, I'm looking for people who have real good, sound business, who are thinking about social impact, that can hopefully scale their work. But scale can mean all kinds of different things. It can mean in depth in one particular region or demographic, or scale could actually mean, obviously just a quantity of things. So it sort of depends on what makes the most amount of sense. But I think like just be true to you. And if you really don't have, if your product is not necessarily an AI type product, don't say it is. Just be clear and honest about what it is that you're actually doing. But like I said, I think responsive technology is the wave of the future, of which artificial intelligence, your big learning your big learning systems are about. They're being sort of responsive, right? They're understanding input of
Yeah.
data and then they're getting output of data.
Awesome. Fascinating. And also, you are a community builder, and I have the privilege to be part of your community in Miami and to see you live building a community because you are not originally from Miami. So amazing to see you in action. But this world is becoming each time more tech-driven world, and people are more like in their own life and not so much into community. So how do you see the concept of community being transformed in this digital era? And what are the implications for activists and community builders in this new world?
Yeah, I mean, I think that listen, human beings, we are social people, and I don't really care what anyone says. No one does anything in isolation or solo. We all need community, and there's a reason why after the pandemic and being forced to be in our homes, that you saw a surgence of depression, anxiety, all kinds of things happening because people were not able to connect with each other. So I think that the idea that technology is going to wipe away this desire for us to have human connection and human touch and be able to see, feel, understand body language. There's a reason why our brain really understands and looks at and can figure out body language. And we need to see all of that. We need to feel all of that. There's a reason why we have five. Some of us have six senses. There's a reason why that all those things exist. And I think that what you're seeing now is actually a course correction. I think that there's a lot of people who are really, really looking more towards how can I come in person? I think that like I've gone to a lot of conferences and I've been seeing these conferences are being sold out across the globe. Why? Because people have missed being in person with each other, listening to folks' voices, laughing, being able to touch, break bread over, let's break bread a little bit. And so that's not to say that technology doesn't play a role in building community, but I also want to emphasize that I think it's super important that we still think really thoroughly about what these intimate, human, people-to-people connections can actually look, feel, and sound down barriers. And what I mean by that is I'm here in Miami, but I could be talking to folks in London. I could be talking to people in Brazil. I could be thinking and learning about a whole new other ecosystem that I may not have been able to do had I not been able to figure out how to build community using some of the technical platforms that we have, whether that's social media, whether that you're going to a particular community platform that you enjoy doing. But I think that there are a few things that people like when they are engaging in community online. Is it a safe place? So is it a place where I feel that I can put my ideas out there and no one is going to troll me? It's okay to have honest discourse, but are people going to be disrespectful in that discourse, or can we be positive in the ways and respectful in the ways that we interact with each other? Are people sharing resources, or am I learning something by being a part of this community? And do I have an outlet where I can share my own things and feel positive and feel good about also giving back to this particular community? And then do I have a role to play in terms of leadership? Do I have a role to play in terms of growing? So can I invite other people into the community? Can I branch out and say, hey, I think this community is great, but I'm really interested in XYZ. Can I start a subcategory in this community around that? And I think that the more that you can offer these sort of real world opportunities where people can showcase their leadership, where they feel worthy, where they feel safe, the more those communities are engaged with each other, in touch with each other, and then you can grow. And you can grow those communities deeply in one particular place, like Miami, or you can say, like, this is going to be a global community and we're going to learn and grow from one another. And things that I didn't know about your country, I'm learning, and vice versa, right? And like, we don't have to rely on the media, what the media says about each other. We can actually interact with each other and make our own sort of decisions around who we are as a people. And I think that also breaks down a lot of the stereotypes and the prejudices that folks walk around with when we're thinking about other.
I love it. I love the vision. So you are bullish on communities and you are seeing tech as an enabler to be able like to build those rich community and keeping the sense of humanity. I love it. And I think this is really going to be like important. Otherwise we will have like this escalation of anxiety, depression, because yes, we are made to be in community. You started touching a bit about it, your mindset at the time of investing in another businesses, because you are a successful entrepreneur, but as I mentioned, you are also an investor. And for you, it's not all about tech, because at this moment, this is what we are listening is like all those tech startup and everybody either wants to be in fintech or biotech or tech, but tech is a big element. So for you, not everything is about tech. Could you go a bit deeper in your criteria when it comes to invest in another business? And what will be your advice for aspiring entrepreneurs and people who want to be like you, future shapers, and they're coming from underrepresented communities, and we know like those communities have more challenges?
Yeah, I think so these are really great questions, and people are always like, so what's your theory? What's your vertical? And I'm like, so I'll be honest, I'm industry agnostic for the most part. I sort of invest in all kinds of businesses. To me, again, it's really about social impact. I do have a penchant for being a diverse investor. I tend to invest in diverse founders, and I'll just put that out there blanketly. But I'm always looking for a social impact good. But I will say that generally speaking for me, and I think this might be true for a lot of folks, I'm relational. And so I think oftentimes when you talk to some of the bigger VC firms and you see how the VC dollar only 2% of the amount of capital goes to diverse women founders, et cetera. And one of the things that they're going to say, and what they always say is, well, and I invest in people that I know. I invest in my network. And so they're rich white men. They invest in other white men. And so same. Okay, so I'm a Black woman. I'm a diverse founder. My network is diverse. And so therefore, I invest in people that I know. And I'm being a little facetious, but I'm also being serious in the sense that I do like to build relationships with founders. So I'm not really I'm not a person who likes cold calling, like, please don't just, oh, I hear you're an investor, you just kind of, find me on LinkedIn. But I like building some kind of relationship. Doesn't mean that we have to necessarily have a prolonged relationship. I mean, if I'm really enjoying what you're talking about and I think it's fire and it's a great idea, and if it's not me, then I'm always open to opening up my network and doing nice, warm introductions. So that's the other thing that I would say too. Like, even if I'm not going to personally invest, if I really enjoy what you're talking about, and I think you're dope, and I like the idea, because ultimately, I'm not just looking at the idea, I'm also looking at the team, I'm also looking at you, I'm also just thinking about everything. I am always open to doing a warm introduction to some of the other investors I have in my network, especially since I have a cadre of angel investors. And I do know some hedge fund folks, but you do have to be, and there I do say I do try to be honest, but like you have to be at a certain level when you're looking for, hedge funds. So when we're talking about diverse founders and funders, I will say that we need to sometimes become a little bit more educated. And again, this is not anyone's fault because we're not taught these things. We're not necessarily in the right circles to understand like what's a cap table and what's all these things. And so I would totally, and I think I see a lot of people going into accelerator programs, learning some of the language. And so oftentimes I think if you're new and you're looking for startup funding, going through an accelerator is actually super helpful because you start to learn a lot of the language, the terminology, what kind of pitches are people looking for. And a lot of the accelerators bring in VCs who will act as mentors to you, right? And so it might feel like, why am I doing all this work? I really just need the money, but actually you really need like a strong foundation. And then once you have the nice foundation and the language to navigate the ecosystem, then once you get that first infusion of cash, the rest of the cash starts rolling through, right? Because You just need that first infusion,
Yeah.
that first 20, 25,000 or whatever. Once people start seeing that other folks are putting their money behind you, then more people will start putting their money behind you. There is that work, and that can be difficult, but I do find that going through an accelerator seems to be a really good educational route to lay a foundation, to help you build out a team, for you to start thinking about your pitch deck. And oftentimes there are many accelerators that are for women, that are for people of color, Black folk, Latino, et cetera, et cetera. And if this is your first rodeo as a first-time founder, or you're a startup, there's so many different types of accelerators to get into. And then, of course, it takes some work, right? You have to apply.
Yeah.
But I think once you start doing that accelerator circuit for a year or so, you're going to feel like you have a really good foundation to get to the next level.
Yes, love it. Super practical in terms of insight of getting the education, because yes, you don't know what you don't know, right? And
Yeah.
developing like the network and the relationship. And your interest in really like lifting up diverse founders, because generally those are not including in the community, is a good transition for my next question, because our audience is global, but currently in the US, DI, so diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, is under attack.
Yeah.
And we have many industry, like the tech industry, because I know also you're passionate about the tech industry, who still need a lot of work in being diverse and inclusive. So in this challenging context where DI is under attack, what do you think we could do, leaders could do, to keep making progress in creating more inclusive and diverse workplaces, and especially in the tech industry, because you have maybe more insight into this industry?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing lots of attack. We're seeing a lot of divestment from some of our big tech firms
Yeah.
into what they originally had as in terms of like DEI roles and DEI departments, and just kind of feeling like, well, the work is done. At George Floyd, we did this for 3-4 years, and now we can move on. So I think that there are a couple of things that we can do, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said the word leaders. If you're a leader, if you're a true leader, then you make opportunities happen. You make situations happen. You create opportunities to ensure that accessibility, inclusivity in these spaces are paramount and important to you. So I think, I think it was Shirley Chisholm who said, if you're not invited to the table, you bring your chair. And then our current Vice President, Kamala Harris, said, if you're not invited to the table, then you kick down the door. And Kwamara Thompson says, all those things are also true, but actually, why don't we just open up our own room in our own spaces? Why don't we do the work that we need to do? And the thing is, oftentimes we have been told, and this is why we have to be careful about stories that are being told and us being silent. We have been told a story that we don't have money. We've been told a story that we don't have power. Well, it's not true. Especially here in the United States, the marketing to the Black dollar, to the Black consumer, is crazy. What does that tell you? It tells you that companies understand the power of the Black dollar. It understands that Black people are generally consumers, and they will make your multi-million dollar, multi-billion dollar company for you. So now if we switch that in our head, we can say to ourselves as Black folk, we could, hey, instead of being consumers, why don't we be producers? And then we can produce the ecosystem that needs to nurture and invest and divest into ourselves. There is a statistic, and the statistic is really sad, but in multiple communities, ethnic communities, Jewish community, Asian, meaning Chinese, Korean, Japanese, etc., Indian, Southeast Asian, Latino, etc., the dollar, this is about here in the United States, the US dollar will circulate an average of 5 times, meaning that before it goes to an outside consumer, they will spend that dollar amongst themselves and create an economy. In the Black community, we don't even do it one time. It stays in, it's like less than 30 seconds that the Black dollar stays in the Black economy. So we need to change that. We need to stop, and again, this is me. Other people are not going to save us, right? Other people are not going to do for us. We can continue to ask them. That's cool, and they'll give us 1% and then act like that 1% is going to kill their entire budget. And then they're going to make you work really hard for that 1% of money. And I'm like, let's change that. We have a powerful positioning in this country. We are a powerful consumer. That means that our dollar means a lot. We can change that and become producers and invest into our own communities. We can change that. We can change that. And we've done it historically. We've had multiple Black Wall Streets. Everyone knows about the one in Tulsa, but we had multiple Black Wall Streets across the United States after the end of slavery, during the Reconstruction period, and now we're actually in a better place and much better position to start really thinking along those lines. And so, while we can continue to infiltrate, for lack of a better word, some of these bigger technology companies and say like, hey, you really need to have diversity in your staff, and we know that diversity in your employees actually makes for better productivity. If you don't believe that, you can look at what's going on in the Olympics. The reason why United States is gold most of the time, has the most amount of Olympic medals, is because of the diversity of the athletes that are up there. Period. There's no, what else is different? Nothing, except that we have diverse athletes up there. And so, so you can just see that being run out right now during the Paris Olympics. You can look at what's going on. Diversity is our strength. So we could say that, we could tell that to the blue in the face, to all of the big technology companies and all in our government. But actually, we need to understand that and believe it, and just say, you know what, we're going to start investing in ourselves. Period.
Love this approach, and which is for me what is great about working in this space of the future of work is it's all about different type of thought, because before everything was in a box, and really at this moment we're all free to really bring ideas and then take action on those ideas. So love this approach. But also in this fast-paced world, at this moment, everybody, no matter your age, we need to keep up. Otherwise, we are going to be left behind and we are going to suffer, because once you are like irrelevant, there is like, you're not really bringing a lot of value in your community or in the economic system. So, and you are involved in so many different initiatives. How do you do to keep up with everything, to be sure that you are bringing value to your community? And what is your advice for people who want to keep up in this fast-paced world?
Yeah, great question. How do I keep up with everything? I don't know. I'm crazy. No, everything that I'm a part of are things that I'm passionate about, that I think are really important, not only from a personal and professional standpoint, but from a humanitarian, economic standpoint, ecosystem building standpoint. So I put myself in lots of different communities. Oftentimes, a lot of times those communities don't look like me, and I do that on purpose, because I want to stretch, but also because, to my point, we need people who look like us in all different sort of communities. And so if no one else is going to do it, I'm going to step up and make sure that I do it. But in terms of adding value and like, how do you structure your time, and like, how are you thinking about things? Listen, the world will have you believe that if you don't work 40 hours a week, you're not productive. It's not true. Actually, the reality of the situation is a 40-hour work week really actually probably translates into like actually 20 hours of real productive time, because, most of the time people are walking around, they're talking to people, they're talking to their friends, and they're surfing the internet or Facebook or whatever the case may be. So maybe you're doing really like 20 hours of really, I want us to be honest and serious about it. Like, literally take a diary and see to yourself, like, how much time do I actually use being truthfully productive, and how much of that is just sort of brain breaks? And don't get me wrong, I think brain breaks are super important, because I think resting your brain gives you the chance to be productive again. So I'm not poo-pooing that, but I'm just saying, like, if you actually take the time, you look through your day, you look through your week, you might find that there are different ways that you can allocate your energy so that you can actually do more of the things that feel a little bit more productive for you, and that have more of an impact, not only in your community, but also just in terms of your well-being, your health, your work-life balance, if that's what we want to call it. I mean, for me, work and life are kind of like the same, because I'm doing things that I'm passionate about. So I don't worry about the work-life balance necessarily. I think about, am I am I doing what I'm called to do in this world? And if I am, then I'm walking through my path, and like that's what I'm supposed to be doing, and that makes me happy, and that makes me productive, and that makes me feel worthy of having breath in this life, and thankful to have it, and I'm sitting on the shoulders of my ancestors. So that's just how I think about things. I mean, that's not how necessarily anybody else needs to. But I would challenge most of us to really think through, like, how do we actually allocate our days, our time? How much is actually truly productive? And are there other ways that you can rejudge your time budget? So people talk about this a lot of times, right? Like, you have money and you create a budget, and where your budget is going is the things that you put your money. Those are the things you find most important. Well, to me, it's the same thing with time. How you put your time are the things that you decide are kind of like the most important things for you. I'm not suggesting that people do all the crazy things that I necessarily do. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely times where I'm tired and I just need to, take 2 days away and be like, please don't call me. And it is what it is. And then I'll swing back to you in 48 to 72 hours. And I just say, like, I hopefully people give me grace. I'm a human being. It is what it is. But I also own that, right? I don't feel guilty about it. Like, if I need to take that time, then I need to take that time. I don't particularly feel guilty about it. I don't think anybody else should either. We should be really living and embracing and loving our lives, and we should not be living to work. So, and I know that sometimes you do have to, obviously, you need to make money or whatever. So I'm not saying that, but when you think through just generally what makes you happy, where's your impact, where you can put your time and your energy, if you are in a privileged place to start thinking along those lines. And since you asked me that question, hopefully the people who are thinking about that are in those privileged places who can start thinking about, how can I start allocating my time? Then you could start thinking along along those ways. It is not, I used to do this too, like, to be a time martyr. Oh man, I've had such a long, crazy day. And, and it made you feel kind of like, because that's the United States makes you feel like you always got to be working, you always got to be productive, you always got to have a high GDP, this, that, and the other. Well, I challenge us to stop that. That doesn't make us worthy human beings just because we work a lot. What makes us worthy? Do people enjoy your company? Do people say, I had a really great interaction with Cindy? She really made me start thinking about XYZ, or, she didn't even know I was having a bad day, but something that she said really brightened up my day, things like that. Those are the things that I countenance as worth. And so that's how I try to spend my time. And then it's my belief that the rest follows.
Awesome. Love it. We are coming to an end of our time together. And like you, I'm really passionate about the impact in people. For this reason, I'm a speaker, I'm a coach and a consultant in leadership and strategy, is to help people, like, really each time unlocking that next level of greatness. So to close, and we talk a lot about your vision, your thoughts, but I want, like, to know you a bit more, like, personal and fun way. So I'm going to have, like, some rapid fire questions to get to know Kwamara on a more personal level. So, paper books or digital books?
Digital.
Digital. To learn, books or podcasts?
Books.
Books. You are, like, super busy. What is one hobby you wish you would have more time for?
Biking.
Biking. Okay.
Yes,
one of the best advice you have ever received?
Oh, wow. Guess because this is top of mind, so this is what I'll say. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is is being afraid and doing it anyway.
Love it. Favorite comfort food?
Oh, favorite comfort food? Sushi and sake. And my mom's food. Oh, and my mama's food.
Yeah. This is the best one ever. And one person who is alive that you would love, a famous person who is alive and you would love to have, like, coffee, lunch, breakfast, like, a time with.
Oprah.
Oprah? Good. And you are, like, super powerful. You have, as I was mentioning in my intro, you are super young and you have already this amazing track record. But What is one superpower you wish you would have?
Oh man, a superpower. You know what? I wish that I could like just sow love everywhere. I think that most of the problems that we have in the world are because people are missing love.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the last one, we talk about like all your different initiatives, and really, I don't know how you are doing everything. What would you do with one additional hour in a day?
Okay. Oh, I honestly would probably sleep a little bit more.
This is a good one, because sleep is super important for the brain and for the memory. Now, thank you so much, Kwamara, for sharing your insights on community,
Thank you so much.
how your criteria to invest, education. I think it was really a rich discussion where everybody can take something and put it in practice to create their own impact in this world. Because I think this is something that we need to understand, like we all need to make a change in our community, even if not being such like you, a community builder, but we all have an impact to make in this world. So thank you very, very much. And thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And thanks to our friends for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoy it, and I'm looking for you for the next one. So stay tuned and see you next time. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Future Fit Edge podcast. To keep the conversation going, follow me on LinkedIn and subscribe to my newsletter. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe, rate, and share on your favorite podcast platform. See you next time.